What is up, everyone? The Oz Commander here, and I'm just sorry about this being up really late. I just got back from the gym, but I really want to talk about this DLC. One of the best DLCs this year, by far one of the most uniquest DLCs that I think I've played maybe in the past 3 years, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure. It's a really good addition to the Borderlands library of DLCs, and just a lovely continuation on from the DLC from the game as a whole. It really is quite good. Like, I'm just adrenaline pumped. It really is that good. The DLC, first of all, I need to talk about what it's called. Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep. It's a fucking mouthful of a DLC, but I think that's what it's called. It pretty much starts off with Brick, Mordecai, Lilith, and Tiny Tina all in this area, and they're about to play a game of Bunkers and Badasses, which is essentially Dungeons and Dragons with a different name. And what I really love is it's a board game. It's like an imaginary like addition to it, but it's not for nothing. Like, the DLC isn't there just to fill it in. It doesn't really mean anything. Once you've beaten the DLC, it doesn't add on anything. It's just a plain little game. The dialogue and what you realize about these characters and emotionally on how they're reacting to, spoiler alert, Roland and Mordecai's death, especially Roland, and how Tiny Tina is dealing with it, is really just quite good. And how the dialogue that they use for it, and it just really is. I really enjoyed what they did with the dialogue here and the emotional impact that I got from it. I was not expecting that at all from this DLC, especially towards the end. I didn't tear up or anything, but I definitely felt a lot for, especially Tiny Tina again. Like, she's just like a 13-year-old girl, and I don't know. It's just, I don't know, it's like a fucking, the graphics aren't even like one of those. I suppose it's The Walking Dead didn't have great graphics either, and I still felt emotional impact towards them. Alright, let's go into the notes. I've written down a shit ton of notes. About average, actually. Alright, so the first thing I really liked about the DLC was how it has a lot of these sort of Easter egg type things to, like, for example, in Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, the DLC that came out for Far Cry, and that had a lot of inside jokes and references to the 80s and how the 80s games were like, movies, TV shows, and what they were like. This doesn't have that exact feel, like it's not another time period per se, but has a lot of current TV shows and former movies, and I suppose The Hobbit's still going, of former movies and television shows. The main movie that I definitely caught at the start of it was Lord of the Rings. It definitely has a similar approach to what they've done with the art style and the environment to Lord of the Rings. It also has some similar enemy characters, like you have the orcs, you have the dwarves, what else? There's the sorcerers, the wizards. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. I really like Gimli. And there's a character in here that does remind me a lot of Gimli. He's like the main boss, and it's funny how they represent dwarves as Scottish. I didn't really realize this until this DLC, but they kind of mishmash the accent of like a Scottish accent with dwarves. Like they do in the Lord of the Rings, they've done it here. It's quite bizarre, really. The only place I haven't really done is Game of Thrones, and that's because Tyrion isn't really that type of person. He was an American actor, really. Anyway, so the DLC has a lot of insider references. There's one, if you know Saruman, the main enemy from the first two Lord of the Rings movies. He is in. There's sort of like an insider reference. There's a sorcerer. I think he's called like not Saruman. It's like Sauron or Sauron or something like that. And he's like a sorcerer. He's an evil sorcerer. It's definitely an inside joke to the Lord of the Rings, and I caught that out straight away. I was on it like a fucking book. I knew that they were not taking the piss, but more of an Easter egg towards it, which is what pretty much essentially this game is. Just one huge Easter egg, similar again to Far Cry 3. Which is why I think they're so similar. They're both incredibly unique DLCs, except this one's not standalone like Far Cry was. It's more of an expansion. Alright, on to the next note. The music and the atmosphere just makes you feel as like you're playing badass. It really is just, the music goes perfectly with it. Like in the hub area, it has a similar orchestral or music orchestral feel to, say, the Shire. It definitely captures that similar tone. Not necessarily the atmosphere. If you look beyond the little houses for the people and the little store setup, it's definitely dark if you look out. But if you just focus on the city, it definitely does remind me a lot of the Shire, and the music definitely helps that and keep that sort of same feel. The action scenes music wasn't the best. Like they didn't have a similar feel like, say, Lord of the Rings again. They really have this kick-ass music for when they go into war scenes with against the orcs or against the any type of enemy. And they didn't really capture the fighting scenes or fighting gameplay as well in Borderlands 2, like the music wise, and that's okay, I guess. It's still good, but it doesn't. Especially, I like the walking around scenes when you're just fighting. We're not necessarily in a huge fight against bosses, but when you're just walking around and fighting orcs or fighting creatures, piece of hair. That definitely is really, really well done, the music, how they did that. The bosses, I think they definitely recaptured. I think they had a fault with the Borderlands 2 bosses. They weren't as just huge in scale. I guess the end one was, but I don't know, it didn't really capture the same feel as Borderlands 1 did with the bosses. Everything was pretty much improved, but the bosses, I felt, which I think they've definitely picked up on that. The bosses there are about 2 or 3 bosses, and I think they really got the scope well done on them. Sorry, I was clicking. Really done really well, and I think they're definitely picking up back again with the bosses. And I'm really excited for the next Borderlands. By the end, you'll definitely see that I think they're going to go forward with the Borderlands 3, especially with the success it had. Like, it has phenomenal success. So I think they are going to go through with it, and I'm really excited for that. A minor complaint that I have with this game, and pretty much all dungeon crawlers in general, are dungeons. I generally always seem to get lost in them. Always. I don't know why, but I just suck at dungeons. I really do. I always, even if they lay out a straight path for me and I follow that path directly, I might get there fine, but getting back is a hassle. I always get lost. No matter how easy and straightforward they have the directions, I always get lost. It's just a fact. So I'm not going to fault them directly for that, but there is some. If you're similar to me and in Skyrim, for instance, these dungeons feel a lot like Skyrim. That's the one part they did similar to Skyrim. You might have the same issue I had with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot with dungeons. I don't know, but that's definitely how I felt towards them. There is only one dungeon that I can find so far, which is good, and that's towards the end. So hopefully there won't be another one. I don't like dungeons, not at all. This one's definitely a fault. The campaign without any side quests. I heard that with the side quests, the campaign's around the 8-hour mark. It took me no longer than 2 hours. One and a half, I think it was, but I definitely didn't take me any more than 2 hours. Which, I suppose if you keep in mind, I did one side quest and it was a very quick one during the entire road. But still, a 1.5 to 2 hour campaign, that's pretty shitty. Like, I paid like what? I suppose I got the season pass for like 30 or 40 bucks, but still, regular people who haven't bought any of the DLCs, they're paying like what, 10, 15 bucks? Like, that's not really worth it money-wise, just if you're going to play the campaign. And I know that a lot of people are going to fault that for that, and I do as well. I think they definitely should have worked on a better campaign length, regardless of how good it is. Because again, I think it's one of the best campaign DLCs that I've played in a couple years, to be honest. It's definitely up there, definitely. What else we got? Includes one of my favorite mythological creatures, one of 2, the orcs. I'm really big fan of the orcs, and minotaurs. I like minotaurs as well. They're my second, but they didn't include minotaurs, which is a shame. But they did orcs, and they did justice to the characters as well. They had the horns as they do in their mouth. They're more of a greenish type dark. What do you call it? Like what's that grey? It's like a green, like a very dark green, but it's not necessarily. It's more like what do you muddy type green, which I think they really did really well, which they used on the character really well, on the creature very well. They did other, like, that's another thing. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but there's a lot of character villain variety. Like, there's heaps of them. Like, there's orcs, there's dwarves, there's fucking dragons, there's skeletons, there's men, there's heaps of weapon variety. I'd go as far to say that there is more character variety in enemies than the entire Borderlands 2 just Borderlands 2 actual campaign, and maybe not actually quite as much, maybe almost there. But there is shit ton of enemy variety, and I really like that there. And it's not just repaints either. That's a good thing. They didn't just repaint the whole character. They actually thought about what they were going to do with it. They made sure that their characteristics were similar to how their appearance was, and I think they did really well with the weapon. I keep saying weapon variety. I have no idea why. With the enemy variety. Oh, and weapons. That's another thing. They incorporated. I haven't actually come across this one yet, but there's a sword gun that I've seen in a lot of the trailers, which looks fucking great. It looks like it would be so powerful and so fun to use, which I'm really looking forward to using. There's also these new forms of grenade mods, which are similar, like wizards type powers, like using a wand. Like, there's electricity, and he goes, and it's like a spell. That's what I'm looking for, a spell. They're more like spells. And they're each called different things. I've come different names. I've come across a couple of them. And he like shoots them from his chest, I think. I don't think he shoots them from his hands. I think it's from his chest. And they're really like, the animations for the characters look really well. They definitely, that was a very clever thing. I would have never thought of that, and I'm glad that they did, because that goes really well with the atmosphere that they've set for this world. So that was really well done, and I congratulate them for that. Well done, yes. That's really it. One of the best DLCs this year, yeah. One of the best DLC out of Borderlands on one and first Borderlands and the second, definitely. But I think I've said that already. That's really it, dude. Like, this DLC really was quite good. I thought I took more notes than that, but I don't think I did. Doesn't look like it. But it doesn't matter. Like, the DLC is just great. I think it's just a very unique DLC and a very good expansion to the entire Borderlands 2 world. Now, what would I give the DLC? That's an easy question. An 8.25 for me. I've thought about this very long and hard. I think it's worth it. I think, even though the campaign length definitely falters, that's probably what's holding it back from an 8.75 or an 8.5 even. But I think there's enough extra content to pull you through for that extra 8 hours. I haven't beaten all the side content, but I have seen how much there is, and there's a shit ton, and they go for quite a while. So I'm not surprised if there's about 8 hours extra content. The campaign's 2 hours, and it's 6.5 extra hours of content. So I'm not even nearly surprised that there's that much. I think there's even more, to be honest, from the amount of missions I've fucking seen after I've beaten it. So yeah, that's really it. I think I'm going to jump back in right now and just play the hell out of it, play some more of it, and that's really it. Thank you extremely for watching. I always fuck up my endings. I'm not going to do it this time. Thank you very much for watching. I'm very grateful for just sticking in there, and if this is your first time watching my content, then if you're enjoying this, if you think I put a lot of I'm not tooting my horn or anything, but I do put a lot of work into the editing. That takes around 2.5 to 3 hours to do, and I'm really hoping it's worth it. Like the video I've just done previously, the July, my plans for July, I've got like 8 views on that, and that took me 4 hours to do. So I'm not sure if it's really worth it for doing like regular vlogs that don't really need it, like that one in particular. But I'm going to continue with the reviews. I think it's really well, no matter how much they take. Like, I'm probably going to get this video out around midnight. It's currently 9 o'clock here. Hopefully I'll get it out at least by midnight, and I'll have it ready to you. If you're American, if you're in any other country, you'll probably see it at the about midnight maybe. I know there's a 10-hour difference between here and North America. And again, I've gone off topic. What the fuck? I always go off topics with these endings. Alright, thank you very much for watching. This is yours, Commander, and I'll see you next time.